Joseph Clampett here with the Stewardship.com YouTube channel, where we unpack what the Bible says about money, possessions, and wealth in 10-minute videos. For today, we'll first discuss the Thanksgiving offering laws in Leviticus, and then we'll look at a later Old Testament example during Hezekiah's time, when all of Israel had a huge Thanksgiving celebration. And right after that celebration, on their sort of Black Friday, I guess you can call it, something pretty shocking happened. So the Thanksgiving offering is explained in Leviticus chapter 7, verses 11 through 18. This was a specific type of offering. Actually, it was a couple of subclasses down. So if we look at all the different types of offering in the Old Testament, there were a bunch of them. There were burnt offerings, guilt or sin offerings, and there were peace offerings, and some others. So the Thanksgiving offering was a specific type of peace offering. Now, for all those types of peace offerings, there were specific regulations about how it was to be done. It had to be either a sheep, a goat, or a cow, so those three animals. No turkey, definitely no ham, that's not even kosher. And there were specific parts of the sacrifice that would be used for different purposes. Now, for some offerings, like a burnt offering, the entire animal would be burned up. Nothing would remain, nothing would be eaten by anyone. But for peace offerings, that was not the case. So the blood would be offered to God on the altar, as well as some of the organs and the fatty parts inside the animal. Some other parts would be given to the priests. The rest of it, the part not given to God or the priests, the person who is coming to give the offering could eat. So that pretty much left most of the animal could be eaten by the person bringing the offering. And the idea was that they would come to Jerusalem to celebrate, giving thanks for what they had, what God had provided, and they would give some portion on the altar, some portion to the priests so that they could also be taken care of. But for the most part, that Thanksgiving offering would be eaten by the person who brought it and their family to celebrate. So why did I say earlier that the Thanksgiving offering does not allow any leftovers? Unlike the other two types of peace offerings, the free will and the vow offering, you could not eat the Thanksgiving offering the next day. Your portion of the animal and the bread that you offered for Thanksgiving offering had to be totally consumed that day by you and your family, maybe your friends, whoever else is in Jerusalem with you. None of it could be eaten if it's left over the next day. Whereas for a vow offering and a free will offering, they could be eaten on the second day, but not the third. Now, if you want to read all the details about the different kinds of peace offerings, including the Thanksgiving offering, you can look at Leviticus chapter 3 and Leviticus chapter 7. If you're enjoying this video so far, please hit the subscribe button to know when new ones come out. In just a second, we'll look at one example of a huge Thanksgiving feast that took place in King Hezekiah's time. But for now, I want to ask you, what are your favorite kinds of Thanksgiving foods? And for how many days do you eat the leftovers? Let me know in the comments section down below. Hezekiah was one of the kings of Judah who really called the people back to follow God again. If you read 1st and 2nd Chronicles, you'll see so many, really the majority of those kings in Israel and kings in Judah as well. Most of them did not follow God. They went their own way. Hezekiah was one of the good ones, one of those who turned away from the things that his ancestors had done, the ways that they departed from following God's law, and tried to come back and really turn their heart and do the best they could to follow the law again. And it wasn't always perfect. This specific story in 2nd Chronicles chapter 30, there's a lot here that Hezekiah and the people are doing that is not ideal. They're celebrating the Passover here, but they're doing it in the second month instead of the first. Not everyone is ritually clean in the way that they're supposed to be. But basically, Hezekiah asked God to overlook these mistakes that they're making and allow them to go ahead and just do their best to celebrate the Passover in the second month, and with in all these ways that are not perfect. And it seems like God accepted his prayer, and God honored that desire of Hezekiah's. So a bunch of people in Israel, well, especially in Judah, gathered in Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. And this was after the Passover was basically a 1-week feast, where there was a lot of, they would eat unleavened bread, they would sacrifice various animals and eat those. And it was basically a time to cease from regular work, celebrate being God's chosen people in the promised land, and just, be thankful for the goodness of God. Now, after they had celebrated that feast for 7 days, it says that they basically weren't done. They wanted to keep going. So let's start in 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 22. And Hezekiah spoke encouragingly to all the Levites who showed good skill in the service of the Lord. So they ate the food of the festival for 7 days, sacrificing peace offerings and giving thanks to the Lord, the God of their fathers. So you see here the peace offerings, and not just peace offerings, but specifically peace offerings that involved giving thanks. So presumably a thanksgiving offerings. Then the whole assembly agreed together to keep the feast for another 7 days. So they kept it for another 7 days with gladness. For Hezekiah, king of Judah, gave the assembly 1,000 bulls and 7,000 sheep for offerings, and the princes gave the assembly 1,000 bulls and 10,000 sheep. And the priests consecrated themselves in great numbers. So the whole assembly of Judah, the priests, the Levites, the whole assembly that came out of Israel, and the sojourners or foreigners who came out of the land of Israel, and those who lived in Judah, they all rejoiced together. There was great joy in Jerusalem, for since the time of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, there had been nothing like this in Jerusalem. Then the priests and the Levites arose and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer came to his holy habitation in heaven. Now, what's even more surprising to me about this story is the very next verse. So if we turn over to chapter 31 and read the next verse, we'll see what the Israelites did when they left Jerusalem and went back home. What was the result of this feast? Now when all this was finished, all Israel who were present went out to the cities of Judah and broke in pieces the pillars, and cut down the Asherim, and broke down the high places and the altars throughout all Judah and Benjamin, and in Ephraim and Manasseh, until they had destroyed them all. Then the people of Israel returned to their cities, every man to his possession. How's that for a way to celebrate Black Friday? I'm all about going out or shopping online and finding good deals, especially if it's something I already planned to buy. But what if we added a new tradition to Black Friday this year? Like Israel in Hezekiah's time, may you make Black Friday a day to completely destroy all your idols and altars. This idea that Thanksgiving mysteriously provides some kind of spiritual wisdom or power to cast down those idols and altars in our lives, that idea is not just present in the Old Testament, it's in the New Testament too. Watch this next video up here to find out more. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button if you learned something from this video, and we'll see you in the next one.